Hello, church family. Hope you're making it all right. Hope these daily devotionals are helpful. Um, in the coming days, the deacons and I will be checking on you, making sure you have everything you need. Make sure you're doing all right. Please let us know if there's anything you need, prayer, something you're struggling with, or if there's physical needs. Then let us know. We'd be happy to help you. Um, as I mentioned yesterday, um, we would, as part of encouraging you and reminding you, we will be looking at some of the attributes of God. And so today we're starting on one of those, and that is the attribute of self existence or independence. And Acts 17, verse 24 and 25, gives us a good description of that, if not extensive. The God who made the world and all things in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all people life and breath and all things. So the self-existence of God, or the independence of God, basically states that God does not need anything from his creation, that he is wholly other, that he exists outside of this created order, and he doesn't draw sustenance, or he isn't sustained by anything outside of himself, that he is within himself, full of everything that he requires or needs, in a sense. I guess you couldn't say that he needs anything, but that he is in himself full, and he doesn't need to pull from anything outside of himself. And so here in this verse it says that Paul is speaking to the Areopagus, and he says he doesn't dwell in temples on earth. He doesn't need you to build temples for him. He does not need this service that we give with our human hands. He doesn't need anything because he is the one who gives life and breath in all things. So how is this comforting? If this separateness, this otherness of God, this independence? Well, it's comforting when we realize that we are dependent and he is independent, that when we approach him in prayer and supplication, he doesn't need to draw from anything outside of himself in order to provide for us. So his provision, his love and mercy and all these good things that he gives us comes from his very nature, comes from himself. And so, as we mentioned yesterday, him being full of goodness and mercy, that comes, and faithfulness, his giving of these things to us, goodness and mercy and love, it comes out of his very being, comes out of an inexhaustible source, namely himself. So he doesn't have to pull from us, he doesn't have to pull from anywhere else, it comes from him. So it is inexhaustible. It's never going to run out because God is infinite, God is eternal. Secondly, it's unfailing because God is separate from his creation, because he exists independently and is full within himself. Then it never fails. It never is contingent on the happenings on earth, or the problems that we as his creatures have, or the inconsistencies that we have. His riches that he bestows, his provision, his love, his care is unfailing because he is unfailing. Because again, he's not contingent on us or resting on us. And finally, it's comforting because it doesn't depend on us. As we saw yesterday in Psalm 78, his care and his provision comes despite sin and rebellion, essentially, particularly to his people. So that we fail, and God isn't waiting up there saying, well, as soon as you love me, I'll love you. And as soon as you show care for me, I'll show care for you. No, it's not. His care and his love aren't resting on our ability or our consistency, but his care and his love are resting on his faithfulness, his consistency, because it comes out of who he is. So that is a comforting thing, knowing that God is not like the Greek gods of old, who dealt with people as a man would to another man. They got angry, and they were fickle. Their anger, God gets angry, but their anger was fickle, and it was contingent on whether or not this person pleased them perfectly and all these things. And as I said, God does get angry, but he does it for his people. He is angry with his people, or he disciplines his people for our good, for our blessing. And that comes out of his desire to maintain that intimate fellowship with his people. And again, it doesn't come from, it doesn't rest on how well we care for him, but it rests on his perfect goodness. Just as the same way as in the gospel, God showed his love for us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So he showed his love for us, not because we're so lovely or lovable, but because he is so loving. And so his goodness and provision, as I said, comes out of his independent nature and doesn't rest on us. And that is a comforting thing. Secondly, as I said yesterday, we would look at some suffering saints of old and as an example, as an inspiration. And one of my favorites is Sarah Edwards. Her husband, Jonathan Edwards, is someone I would call a father in the faith. And he took the presidency of Princeton University, and a year or so later, he was dead. He contracted smallpox, actually, from the smallpox vaccine that they applied to him, but instead of preventing the disease, it caused it. And so after that, his wife, Sarah, sent a letter to her daughter, and she says this to her daughter in reference to her husband dying and, her daughter's father dying. She says, "What shall I say? A holy and good God has covered us with a dark cloud. Oh, that we may kiss the rod and lay our hands on our mouths. The Lord has done it. He has made me adore his goodness, that we had him so long. But my God lives, and he has my heart. Oh, what a legacy my husband and your father has left us. We are all given to God, and there I am in love to be." Isn't that a beautiful letter? Someone who has put their hope and trust in God and has accepted this good gift of a husband and a good loving father from God, but she didn't put all her trust and her confidence and her surety in that. She put it in God, and she understood that this good gift came from him and that God is still good. So I hope we can have that same attitude. I know that's convicting for me as I think about going through hard times. And then finally, a prayer from the Valley of Vision. O God, whose will conquers all, there is no comfort in anything apart from enjoying thee and being engaged in thy service. Thou art all in all, and all enjoyments are what to me thou makest them, and no more. I am well pleased with thy will, whatever it is, or should be in all respects. And if thou bidst me decide for myself in any affair, I would choose to refer all to thee. For thou art infinitely wise and cannot do amiss, as I am in danger of doing. I rejoice to think that all things are at thy disposal, and it delights me to leave them there. Then prayer turns wholly to praise, and all I can do is to adore and bless thee. What shall I give thee for all thy benefits? I am in a strait betwixt two, knowing not what to do. I long to make some return, but have nothing to offer, and can only rejoice that thou doest all, that none in heaven or on earth shares thy honor. I can of myself do nothing to glorify thy blessed name, but I can through grace cheerfully surrender soul and body to thee. I know that thou art the author and finisher of faith, that the whole work of redemption is thine alone, that every good work or thought found in me is the effect of thy power and grace, that thy sole motive in working in me to will and to do is for thy good pleasure. O God, it is amazing that men can talk so much about man's creaturely power and goodness, when if thou didst not hold us back every moment, we should be devils incarnate. This, by bitter experience, thou hast taught me concerning myself. Amen.